Uh, One of the many educational components to the energy language system is the possibility of using it as a tool with which to better understand the certain percentage of humankind that we would consider to be synesthetes, or that would experience some degree of synesthesia. Synesthesia, if I can do it a service or disservice by trying to describe it in my non-scientific layman's terms, involves literally a crossing of signal in the brain such that a sound is perhaps smelled as opposed to heard, or a color is perhaps tasted as opposed to seen, so that synesthesia can range from being really, really intense to that somebody can barely function in the world as we know it, to very mild level synesthesia, the likes of which I experienced as a young person, where I would taste certain colors, not that I would touch this white with my tongue and taste white, or that I would, not that there was a direct correlation between the color of the thing that I was tasting and the color that I would see in my head, but certainly certain tastes had colors that would come very vividly and splash themselves across my vision when I would taste them. A couple of examples that come to mind are if I bit my tongue and I tasted a little bit of blood, or I had like a tooth removed or something, that would have a very silvery, bright, shiny sort of color to it. If I was to put a penny on my tongue or taste something that was like slightly rusty, it would have a kind of a turquoise blue shimmering sort of, literally those immediate sensations would start to impact themselves on my retina. And when I would try to describe this to people, I obviously didn't encounter any other synesthetes, because it would generally be met with a kind of a, what? You mean you taste the color? Like, what color is this? Like, like people just kind of didn't get it, because, this was when I was, really, really young. And gradually, and I don't know whether it was something that I kind of overcame through just not trying to experience it anymore, or whether I was kind of driven from it from the lack of understanding of that I was in fact like a mild synesthete. I gradually kind of lost that ability to see it. But I know that it does exist in a fairly sizable percentage of people that have, like I said, different levels that it affects them. In some cases, I think that mathematicians will describe the ability to see certain mathematical numbers or equations in ways that the rest of us that are not particularly good at mathematics would never be able to do. They will, in fact, have an enhanced ability to visualize certain problems or equations or chemical valences in spatiotemporal terms, and they literally arrange them in their minds in ways that the rest of us have to pull out a calculator or just struggle with a pen and paper for an hour or two. I think that there are people that are differently abled that need to have additional tools into A, making the rest of the world understand their experiences, and B, understanding the nature of their synesthesia for themselves. And not being a specialist in that area by any means, I don't know to what extent the tool array that's available for scientists and educators and young people or anybody that has synesthesia, I don't know to how it's been advanced or how sophisticated it is. Though I would hope that in the case of the energy language, since every sound in the vocal apparatus, every phoneme, every raw unit of sound that we can produce in the vocal apparatus has a corresponding tone, like a sound tone, has a corresponding color, and even has a corresponding taste and smell to it, such that people with differently abled endowments will be able to perhaps describe the nature of their synesthesia to others in a slightly easier way. And not only that, imagine if someone has someone that lacks hearing. The reason that the speech of people that lack hearing is generally more difficult to understand is that they lack the immediate feedback of what that sound, when it's produced by my vocal apparatus, sounds like. So they're not sure whether they're saying the H or they're saying the G or the R. And it's difficult to understand a person who lacks the ability to make the immediate feedback. However, if that person is able to, by means of a microphone, immediately see a little diagram, the portion of the diagram of the sound that they're saying is able to be lit up as they're saying it in real time, it could perhaps like, okay, I want to say the sh sound, but when I think I'm saying the sh sound, I'm really saying the zh sound. Well, wow, like now that I'm looking at this real-time transformation of the raw audio data into this three-dimensional spatiotemporal kind of perceptually endowed three-dimensional object, wow, I'm suddenly able to realize that what I really need to do is put my tongue slightly further back in my mouth, even though it doesn't really feel like I should be pronouncing it that way. Wow, I can actually make that sound more like what other people use when they make that sound. So the fact that all of these configurations in the diagram correspond with very specific vocal apparatus configurations could be of use for people in the education realm, the teaching and learning of languages realm, and for the realm of those of us that are considered synesthetes by the methods of science.